Hello everyone. It's James again. And today I want to talk about something very important. Something I've been thinking about deeply for some time now. And something I've mentioned here and there on this channel. But I was able to finally sum it up in my mind. And come up with a solution to this problem. You might be asking. What the heck are you talking about, James? Just get to the point. I know I get it. But with such a deep problem it must be talked about correctly. Otherwise people turn off their hearing and they start hearing what they've been programmed by our society to hear. Which, as a side note, that is part of brainwashing. So the person or people getting brainwashed never get help because when they hear certain trigger words in such help statements they shut their hearing off. And act as if they are being attacked when they are really being helped. You see. I watched a video from NPD girlfriend the other day. And there were some things that struck me. And brought up some things I've been thinking about for a while. Now before I tell you the name of the video so you can go and watch it, I want to cover a few things first. Because the title of this video might be a trigger that might turn off your listening. So please, don't turn off your listening. And secondly, his language is a bit rough at times. So if you can't look past that, the video isn't for you. If you can and are willing to listen to the message, then it is for you. Thirdly, before I tell you the name of the video and what was talked about, I want you to look up any and all new documentaries here online regarding modern relationships in China. And when you watch these documentaries, you will find several toxic things happening. Listen up, as this is important. You see that there's way more men in China than there are women. So much so. Women have their pick on who they want to date and or marry. The young men most looking to be in their late teens or early 20s. Talk about working hard in their studies so they can get a good enough job. So they can make enough money to be able to get a wife. And you can see they are keenly aware that if they don't meet the standards of the women in their country, they will be left without a woman. And their sole goal is to become as wealthy as they can, because literally, they may be without a woman if they don't make it. Not they will just have to settle for this woman or that woman. No. They won't have a woman, period. And then when the women are interviewed, many will giggle and laugh and talk about how they have their pick of men because of there being more men than women in China. And they aren't shy when they talk about how much money a man must have before he's to be considered. Now, here's something else going on in China. Again, not all, but most of the women indeed go after the top 10 to 20% of males. Meaning the rich males in their country. So much so. Having 10 different women biting for the time of a married wealthy man is commonplace. You would think they would go after a man that was available that maybe had a bit less. But because money is the motivator, they would rather overlook an available single man. And go for a man that is married and has several other girlfriends already that she knows about. This is very much commonplace. So much so. There are private detectives or sorts that try to get evidence of the affairs. Because they have fault divorces. And if an affair can be proven, in this case we are talking about the husband doing the cheating, the wife would be compensated once she files for divorce. Without the evidence there's no compensation. Now to add another element. There are men that get so desperate and crazy. They will steal someone else's wife. And I do mean literally steal someone else's wife. And they will take her to the countryside to be their wife and have children with them. And again there are more private investigators that look for the stolen wife. Now I know we are talking about China here. And you are likely from the Western world. But let all of this sink in for just a moment. Now I want you to think about something. At least in the United States, it greatly appears there are more men than there are women. Kind of like in China. Now this is where I want to backtrack and tell you the name of the video by NPD girlfriend. And again, the language is kind of rough. So keep that in mind if you watch it. And the name of the video is Modern Women Equals Useless. Now before you get all riled up, what was said in his video, and I don't know if he realized it or not, is actually a help to you good women on the planet. And I will tell you how before the end of this video. And how it all ties in with the example I just gave about China. So please keep the China example fresh in your mind. And it will all start to make a lot of sense what I'm about ready to say. You see, in this video, NPD girlfriend talks about the lack of reciprocity in the relationships between women to men. And again, does that mean all women? No. Not all women are like this. However, as he mentioned, he noticed that even 10 years ago or so, he could see the changes start to happen in society and people. But there was still reciprocity to some degree. And the masculine and feminine were appreciated. So what happened? Well, the laws that greatly allow women to not be quite so honest in relationships when in regards to child support and divorce were already in place. Now, I will say it again. And I'm sure you will get sick and tired of me saying it. But I know that's not you. Because not everyone is like that. But the numbers with each decade since the 60s grew with out of marriage births and divorces. To the point it's now normal for children to be brought up in a split-up home. So what changed in the last 10 years? And it's not just NPD girlfriend that has noticed this. I've come across both men and women on YouTube that say the same thing. That yes, there was some screwed up things happening with in regards to divorces and child support and alimony 10 years ago. But it seems like today it's on another level. And there's a difference between how men and women connect. Or a better way to describe it is not connect. Now keep that China example in your mind. Think. What happened 10 years ago? Social media started to take off. To the point where today, most, again, not all, but most women have hundreds of friends on Facebook, Twitter, and Snapchat, just to name a few. If they choose to use a dating site, upon uploading their pictures, even if they aren't attractive at all, they may get 100 replies in a day. 100, I know that's crazy, right? Now before all of this, to backtrack, you had a lot of women saying it was normal to go to a woman's only trip to a known party town where there were single men there wanting to hit on them. But somehow you as the guy had to believe it was just harmless fun and nothing would happen. And that objecting to her having male friends made you somehow insecure. These types of things were happening 10 years ago. But there was some good women that still believed in reciprocity and weren't doing such things. However, many were doing such things. And I know men do dirt too. However, the social engineers started to pump and program society that this was someone normal and good and any man that objects is to be shamed. But you add on top of that the social media I just talked about. Old high school admirers looking up certain women on Facebook. Old boyfriends sending them DMs. Now do you have the China example still firm and fresh in your mind? And an average to non-attractive woman can upload her profile and picture on a dating site and get over 100 messages in one day. You see when you watch NPD girlfriend's video. Yes. The language is a bit rough. But he's basically talking about the same thing that is going on over in China. But it's happening right here to us in the West. Right now in China. The women don't have to have or show any reciprocity whatsoever. Men are working themselves to death just so they can make enough money to hopefully impress a woman. Because there are so many men. That even a woman that isn't very attractive can still get a rich or well-to-do man. Now think about it. 10 years ago, before the takeoff of social media, where would a woman that is very much overweight, let's say, get 100 people in one day wanting to go on a date with her? And I'm very serious when I give that as an example. If I told you 10 years ago that this woman that is 50 pounds overweight would get 100 guys in one day that wants to date her, You would in no way, shape or form believe me. But here we are. Just like in China. A Western woman would rather bide for the time of a married or attached man that is wealthy than a man of average means that is single. You hear these MGTOW videos where they talk about how women only want the top 10 to 20%. Well, sometimes the truth is hard to look at, especially when it's coming out of an angry man's mouth. But when you watch these China documentaries, you will start to see it's not only true for China. It's true in the West as well. You see, there's no reciprocity in China. Because the women have more options than they can shake a stick at. And if they do have a boyfriend of average means, how do you think he will be treated? That's right. Disposable, like you hear a lot of men in the West say. Because there are so many men and so many options for her. She will most certainly find someone taller, or richer, or has more status, or whatever. And he will be left like he was a nobody and the relationship never existed. You see, men in the West have talked about feeling invisible. And these aren't just what you would call socially awkward men. These men come from all walks of life and cultures and backgrounds. And many, you would be shocked, are handsome, well dressed, and are great communicators. Yet women pay them no to little mind. Why is this happening? Then it hit me. Even 10 years ago. Though men usually pursued the woman still had to do a bit of work to make herself available to be seen. Especially if she was a little overweight. Or not that attractive. Women interacted with men more. You felt the energy in the air. But what has changed between now and then is they don't have to do that now. Someone that is unattractive and overweight has 100 men in one day waiting for her. And that's just a dating website. That's not including her other social media. They have their pick. They have their pick. And because they have more than their pick. Many. Again, not all. But many don't feel like they have to show reciprocity. The give and take. The ebb and flow. And if someone comes along in their DM that has more money, you get dropped like a hot rock. As if you never existed. Now, why is all of this a problem for you, the good woman? The more this happens, where the woman can have 100 men to pick from like several pairs of shoes, or like candy, the more good men are going to say, this isn't worth it. And they will walk away. Much like NPD expressed his frustrations. And you know who's going to fill that gap the good men have left? That's going to be the narcissist male that loves to use and abuse any woman they can. And the beta male that will allow an evil woman to rule him. Just so he can be with a woman. And this goes back to the many or most, not all topic. When you watch these China documentaries, you see it's a real problem over there. I mean, it's not a little deal. It's just how things are there, and it's commonplace. Well, I have news for you. It's commonplace here too. And when you line the two situations up side by side, it's almost identical. It gives you shivers because you start to see how this was done to us on purpose. It was all an evil plan, people. It was all an evil plan. A plan so the good men and good women can't connect. And have healthy families. And the people that are good but are asleep and still under society's spell, they can get them to go along with this evil garbage. As the brainwashing is just that good. Because think about it. Most of these women that get hundreds of messages a day don't want to give that up. No way. No how. They know they hold all the cards. And just as I mentioned before, these types think you are suckers, good ladies, for not playing your cards like they play theirs. Think about it. They are married to a guy that makes more money. They get to go on girls-only trips once or twice a year and meet strange men. They get hit on left and right online with other men trying to get their attention. Thirsty men, I might add. But go back to the China example. There are men there literally stealing wives to make them their wives. Now that practice might not be common here in the West. But a bunch of thirsty men messaging a married woman is still in a way trying to steal another man's wife. But a married woman here in the West getting Facebook messages, DMs, option after option. She can go on these girls-only trips and to the bar every now and again. And she knows her husband dare not say a word about it. Because in her mind, he should be lucky to be with her. Why? Because she has all of the options and he has none. And again, the more this goes on, because it's getting bad, the more of a chance you will have of dating a narcissist man, you good ladies. Because the way this world is, it's a male narcissist's heaven. Because he's about the hookup and scamming good women. He's also about catching another man's girlfriend or wife while she's on vacation or at happy hour. Let me tell you what. The narcissist man doesn't want the setup to change at all. It's their heaven. And they will be the good man's replacement once every good man walks away. But with that said, what can be done about this? It sounds impossible, right? I mean social media. How do you get around that? Well, first off, when someone says the situation is impossible, I think about David and Goliath. With a bolo-type sling and a well-placed stone, an unbeatable giant was beaten. And I look at this situation the same way. So what's the answer? I think and believe that if we took a case like one of the cases that were put on the news, where the man was clearly not the father, but they were still ordered to pay child support anyway. And instead of the lawyer bringing it to the news just once, the lawyer took the case pro bono and went to talk to as many news outlets as possible. And interviewed weekly with YouTubers that have a high following, medium following, and small following. And took such a case to the Supreme Court, to get it ruled as fraud and abuse. And for such a man to not only be ordered to stop paying child support as the child isn't his, but to get the money he paid back from the person that committed fraud upon him. And in case you're not aware, there are a lot of cases like this. One where the true father admitted he's the father but won't take the man that is paying the child support's name off the birth certificate. Because in this so-called man's words, he would much rather have someone else pay for his child than him. So he's just going to keep things as they are. And the court is fully aware. But as the court says, they can't force him to sign the papers. Even though he admits to being the father and the man paying child support has proved he's not the father. And you can find this news story on YouTube. Now why should we go after such a case? Why? Because it's low-hanging fruit and it's something that is winnable in my opinion if it's pursued hard enough. There is no gray area. A man is being forced to pay child support for a child that's not his. It doesn't get any clearer than that. And I will let you in on a little secret. Those that engineered the society we now live in, they did so through small victories. And once they were able to set a precedent, their ball started to roll. Well, if a precedent is set in such a case, there are a lot of men in the West that could find victory and much needed help that are caught in such mess. But then it would allow us to look into other areas as well, such as child support, alimony, and if a marriage license is even needed. And it will allow both men and women to be fairly treated with in regards to custody and divorce should a divorce occur. And if that happens, and men that are abused know they can get away from a toxic woman without losing their shirt, they will run, and you will notice for the first year or so, instead of women leading in filing for divorces, it will be men. But I think though there will be a huge spike in men divorcing. I believe there will be a huge spike in new marriages. Biblical marriages. But ladies, hang on for a moment. I think you would see men marrying women from countries that value men. I'm just going to be honest with you. But within a year or two, I think Western women would realize this 100-man option thing. Men aren't going for any more. And they can get away from them if they feel they are being treated like someone that is disposable. But what about social media? Well, I'm here to say, Social media needs the laws the way they are. Because if men could leave their abuser easily, there wouldn't be a lot of men putting up with Facebook friends and Snapchat buddies their wife has, or 100 men filling up her inbox with messages trying to ask her out. And while all of this is going on, guess who gets to step into the gap and fill that space the toxic woman once filled? That's right, you, the good woman. And the good women that was under the spell of the social engineers will finally have a good example. And her temptation of her many options taken away. Taken away. Because of fairness in the laws. Because once the laws are made fair, women will need to show reciprocity if they want a relationship with a man. And there's no man that will accept ladies' trips to Vegas and all the Facebook nonsense because he knows he doesn't have to. Something to think about. I can talk about this topic some more, but I will wait for another video to do so. But I'm telling you, one of you lawyers that has already gone on television with your client in such a paternity fraud case, you need to go the extra mile. Get weekly interviews with popular YouTubers. Keep pushing. Because if you were able to get that one victory, a victory for something that shouldn't even happen to anyone in the first place, will allow the door to be open so all of the other things can be looked at and fixed. Because if we don't do something now, it's only going to get worse for the good man and the good woman. Because that's what the social engineers want. With that said, I do hope everyone had a blessed day. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, as we are working towards a starting goal of 200,000 subscribers. If you have already subscribed, I thank you. Don't forget to click the little bell to be notified each and every time I make a new video. Also don't forget to like this video, as by doing so helps push this content to the front of YouTube. And if you want to support even further, you can do so by the way of Patreon. And for those that have done so already, I humbly say thank you. With that said, let's continue to pray for wisdom. Let's continue to pray for strength. And let's continue to pray for courage. And until next time, bye for now. And be good to yourself.